Hello there, lovely. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Lunchtime Cafe right here on Camnet TV. Not just another channel. You are watching us live on DSTV and GoTV, as well as on Facebook. We are live as Camnet TV. Please search for us, like the page, and be sure to leave a comment. My name is Joe Smarter, and today our discourse will take you to the diaspora, where we feature a Zambian residing in Oslo, Norway. She is a civil rights activist, she is a governance activist, and she is a political enthusiast. She joins us this afternoon to discuss a number of pertinent national, social, economic matters. My guest this afternoon is Charlotte Ness. Mrs. Charlotte Ness, good to have you, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Smata, and good afternoon, Zambia. Thank you for having us.
Okay, fantastic. Let me start by asking how the weather condition is that side. It's a bit chill in the morning here, a bit warm in the afternoon, cold later in the evening. How's the weather that side?
Right now, it looks a bit gloomy, but the temperatures are good. It's not raining, it's not snowing. We are slowly sliding into the spring, so we're good. We are excited to see some flowers, so we can't complain.
Okay, fantastic. Now, Zambia's climatic conditions have affected its economy. Like you are aware, the president did declare the drought in some parts of Zambia as a national disaster, and this in itself has made global headlines. Let me find out from you, is this condition only unique to Zambia as a country, or maybe it's global? Let me begin to find out from you.
It is global. It is global. What is important is how Zambia is going to respond, and that any situations is not going to take us unaware. So we have seen climate change making headlines, and it's only right that it was about time the president declared it a problem for Zambia. We have seen the previous rainfall pattern for the previous, that from 2023 getting into 2024, that has been very, very severe for Zambia, which is making us very worried when it comes to the food security. So how we respond is what is really going to make us strong as Zambia, but it is here to stay, but we can do a few things in order to combat it, that it doesn't affect us rapidly.
Okay, fantastic. Now, I know for a fact that you, being in the diaspora, you are also a fan of Zambian traditional ceremonies. And talking about traditional ceremonies, we saw that a few days ago, the Lozi-speaking people of the Barotsi floodplains in Western Province held their annual ceremony, where they invited Paramount Chief Chitumkulu from Northern Province. Now, you know the controversy that surrounded this particular ceremony, and obviously the President of the Republic of Zambia being a mere citizen attending this particular ceremony, something that has never happened. Let me begin to get your thoughts from what developed at that particular ceremony and events leading to the ceremony. Let me begin to get your thoughts.
Thank you very much for that question. Allow me to just link the Kuomboka to see how full the waters were in the Kuomboka. Some people were even saying, how can we be talking about drought when the Kuomboka, we could see that it was, the water levels were actually promising. They look very, very good. And one of the things that, just to add on the topic of climate change and the effects it has on the drought has on Zambia, we can look at the food security. We touched a little bit on that one, but then one would also want to acknowledge that we see the effects of drought today. However, also at the same time, Zambia is complaining about the prices of our staple food, which is maize. And we have seen that the current drought has actually affected the product. We don't know how much grain we're going to have at the end of the season. What should be interesting us as well as we fight climate change for Zambia is the food security and how dependent we are on the corn. We must admit that the hunger that we're facing today and the high prices in the mill, this is just a part of the iceberg. The hunger we are facing today is not caused by the drought, the current drought, or at least this past season. We need to realize that the hunger created by this drought is going to hit us towards the end of the year. And let me allow me to highlight the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services. They have started an exercise where they are going in different districts to do a pilot exercise to identify the most vulnerable people in society, where the government can come in with food packages and just some aid. I feel that is commendable job the government is doing, and that is the way we should go. However, it is stating that they will be given these hampers at least in the year at least for a year until next year, April, somewhere there. I would recommend that government must consider doing that at least for the next 2 years, because the current situation is not caused by the drought, the current drought, so meaning that the current coupled with the creation of the hunger or the effects of the drought will be very, very severe next year. So just to touch on that one, that is very important. Coming back to the Kuomboka, you must have seen from yesterday, Monday, how the Chimbuya is playing up. Where the Lozi, the Barotse, and the Chitimokulu have now agreed that the Lozis and the Bembas are going to be tribal cousins. And some people from the Eastern are also, getting jealous, but I think we like that. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely that on a Monday morning we woke up, or at least Sunday, we were getting into the weekend, everybody was so happy who is going to be. I have seen there's a crocodile, I have seen there's a cow, I have seen there's a monkey, I have seen there's a mouse on top. Isn't that what Zambians are all about? And this is how we see who belongs to what and who does that. The traditional leaders have a role to play in Zambia, in our community. They are the custodians of the heritage. They are the custodians of the culture. We need to have an identity. Each one of us has that ethnic grouping, which we are so proud of, which really relegates us to just being an ordinary person. We have seen it with the Kuomboka, we have seen it with the Kumbiliamize, we have seen it with the Nchwala, we have seen it with different traditional ceremonies, and now they're actually taking center stage. Before, it was the Kuomboka, the Kumbiliamize, and now we see the Nchwala. Everything is being commercialized. But what beauty it is to see all Zambians coming together without talking about enmity. We are just there. Imagine the beauty we have been seeing in the previous days. Nobody has been saying you come from here and therefore this, and that. So, yes. And coming to the president being an ordinary person going to be there, I think he did a fantastic job. He did an amazing thing to actually go to the Kuomboka. Before the Kuomboka itself, there was a lot of hula baluba, but that did not deter. He did what he needed to do. And I'm actually very glad to see that there was no fracas that happened during the Kuomboka. He respected the true powerful traditional leaders do their thing, and he went there as government. But then at the same time, there was no disrespect. And I think that is what we take home from us, from the traditional ceremony. Above all, I think it's the love that we see, and that is what we need to uphold, all of us.
Okay, fantastic. Now, away from traditional leadership and matters that have to do with our traditional leaders, let's come to the issue of fighting corruption. Now, not so long ago, KCM liquidator Midingolungu forfeited 24 million United States dollars to the Zambian government, and that translates to 600 million kwacha at the current rate at which the kwacha is trading. Let me get it from you. how do you look at the fight against corruption in this particular government, especially when it comes to the forfeiture of property monies as opposed to individuals that have been found wanting to serving jail time?
I would like, thank you very much for that question, brilliant question, and this question will never leave us. It will always be within us. Let's start with the current government. The current government, before the current government, before its party, before it formed this government, they had a to-do list, and one of their to-do list was to fight corruption, right? So if we look back at the creation of the UPND and getting creation of the government, what did they bring with them in order to fight corruption? In order to fight corruption, we need frameworks, right? What frameworks have they put in place in order to fight that corruption? That is what we should be very concerned about. And in the event we would like to go back to them, you as a journalist, you will be able to ask these questions as well. We need to look at what frameworks they have put in place in order to fight that corruption. We also need to be reminded that the corruption fight, it should not be seasonal. We see that corruption fight becomes very intensified immediately after change of government. So what frameworks do we see? We can see that we have state agencies that are, fighting corruption directly. However, the questions we need to ask ourselves, how independent are these state agencies that are fighting corruption? Are they linked to the power, the overall powers? If they are, how compromised are we when we fight corruption? Because, sometimes, yeah? Did you want to come in?
No, continue.
Yes, yes. So when we fight the corruption, we have to look at how do these institutions function that are actually fighting corruption. It is very important. You talked a little bit about the forfeiting of the 24 million US dollars. Just a week ago or so, we saw this coming in the newspaper. However, there's a lot of information behind that figure that everybody gets very knocked down when they get to hear or they see those figures appear in the newspaper. The question is it really true that Milingo Lungu was sitting with that 24 million US dollars? That is also another question that, we need to take time to ask, find the truth. I get to see that the 24 million, even me, when I read about it, I was a little bit shaken. But we get to realize that there's a deal. There's a deal. As we get employed, you are employed, I am employed. There is an agreement between the employer and the employee. And that is the case of Milingalungu. I wouldn't want to dwell into it too much, but I would like to say that as Zambians, I think we need to take some time, both the media that are informers and the intention of doing it. I think it's very important we see how we are disadvantaging our country and then how we get to be so swamped into thinking there is so much when there's actually not much. And if it's so much that we are fighting corruption, I think it's very important that those that sit with the powers, if they want information to go out, they should take some time to educate us, because we will be talking about realities that are not actually factual. But because everything is out there in the media and there's nobody to come out and debunk, we haven't heard from Milingo himself. We haven't seen any charges being pressed. So why would somebody be forfeiting funds and then the police don't come in? That should keep us thinking. His lawyer was saying there's a deal which he couldn't, when he was, I think he was on Diamond TV not too long ago. When he was questioned about the same, he said he couldn't get so deep into it. Meaning the deal is not done yet. So I would want to leave it there, but I would encourage that information of such magnitude must be understood, that there's a state and there's the state have got also the right actually to, to allow that forfeiting. But then there's much more information that we are missing on that issue, I must say. So it is very premature for somebody, especially me who is not a lawyer, to get into it and explain. But maybe at a later time when the case has been closed, we will be obliged to get to some data that we can actually discuss and be able to, to talk about it.
Okay. Now, let me find out from you, as a governance enthusiast, there has been concern from some sections of society suggesting that politicians are getting into deals with their friends to have them forfeit this property. And basically, I'm basing this question based on one of our daily tabloids that carried this as a headline last week, Thursday or Friday, I stand to be corrected, where one governance activist said that politicians are getting into deals, cutting deals with people that are supposed to serve jail time. Let me find out from you. Another school of thought thinks that if one, for instance, is found to have stolen a goat or a chicken, they are sentenced to 5 years imprisonment with hard labor. But we are seeing monies amounting to 24 million United States dollars, translating to 600 million kwacha, and an individual is said to have forfeited these monies to the state. But let me get it from you, these observations from different players when it comes to governance observers, governance activists, and governance experts, saying that people are supposed to do jail time because forfeiting of the property is admission of guilt. Let me get it from you. Just your general observation over these particular concerns from different players in governance.
Like I earlier mentioned, we talk about a government is formed by institutions. Each institution has a duty to carry out.
Okay.
Let the courts do their job. When the courts have done their job, if there's a criminal offense, the police or there's a procedure that goes, they can force an arrest. Coming to the rich and the poor getting arrested or jailed for something that is very, very minimal. There's one thing with an elephant in the room that maybe we get to forget about.
Okay.
There's the legal aid. The legal aid is available to serve the ordinary people who are not able to, to afford higher legal fees, right? There's a certain percentage that one can pay, but then that is a legal services that is available. However, we must admit that it's not too many. Too many lawyers are working in the legal aid, and it's not many offices either around the country that are able to serve the people. You find that there are cases here, some cases at the subordinate courts and at the high courts. You find that the cases about the goats will end up at the subordinate court. And the people who are going to the subordinate courts, an ordinary Zambian like me, might not even know that there's a legal aid that is available for me, right? I'll go there risking going against Mr. Simata, who is knowledgeable and has a lawyer, and I go there not knowing that I have a right to actually consult legal aid to have a representation. And the magistrate will not ask me or request me to go and find myself a lawyer. I'll get in and I'll be defending myself against you who is standing with a lawyer, right? In my talking, I might end up having myself jailed because I didn't explain myself very well. So that is one fact that we should not forget, that everybody jailed because they stole a goat or they assault or something, they are punished severely. The other hand, they have the money. The lawyers are there. There's a lot of workload that is also involved here that we don't see, but we get to see. You see, the lawyers have having all these big files. There's a reason why they're having all those big files. We see that the clients are paying a lot of money. And yes, they are paying a lot of money because of the defense. They have to put up a very good defense. So for somebody who is able to pay, of course, they will go there and they will be tried. They will have defense. So we should not be talking about the poor people are suffering. There is some, and there are times that we also question our courts, rule of law. Maybe our magistrate, but are corrupt. It's not all the time. So let's try to look at what is it that we really are discussing here, and how is it that it's easy for the richer to get away with it. They do have, and you see that they hire the best lawyers on the market, right? They hire the best lawyers. That does not guarantee that they're not going to be jailed. And let's hope that all these cases we're seeing for high profile, they come at one time. We should see O.J. Simpson in Zambia happening, where somebody big has actually been found guilty of having committed a crime, so that we can continue having the respect and the dignity that, our law enforcement has. They deserve.
Okay, let me begin to pick on your political mind now. We have seen the formation of the United Kwacha Alliance. However, the powers that be, including the ministry in charge of the office of the registrar, which is Home Affairs, says this is an illegal entity. Now, that's another topic for another day. However, UKA, or United Kwacha Alliance, in its totality or entirety, do you feel they have a political future in the Zambian political space?
I wouldn't say yes and no. They have not been tried.
Okay.
They have gathered, they have assembled. There are great minds that have come up together, wanting to form an alliance, which they have formed, however not yet registered. I'm wanting to believe that at an appropriate time they will do that. I think only time will tell, and the only time that will tell is by allowing them to prove themselves wrong and right. And who is going to do that? It's the Zambian people. We have seen that there's been, allow me to state that, we have seen that political parties have not had a very good day in wanting to hold assemblies, getting together, rallies and all this. They have been prevented in the last few months, where we see the police stating that they do not have enough manpower to be present during these assemblies. It becomes very difficult to respond to that question, whether the alliance have a place in the Zambian politics or not. We haven't heard that much. They are talking here and there, but allow them to assemble regardless of who. I think it's only right that the police should go and, you see, we have been seeing arguments where majority opposition are saying that the current government, or at least the police, is abusing the Public Order Act. One would want to go by it, by the happening that the opposition political parties are not allowed at least to assemble or to hold this, whether it's premature, but just allow people. We shouldn't be hearing, we are a democratic country. Everything we do to infringe has an effect on our democracy. Not too long ago, I saw in the newspaper where the American ambassador to Zambia was asking, why isn't the Patriotic Front? Those things are some of the things we can avoid as a country. And I think I would just want to sit here and say, the police should have a review on how to handle these political parties. We shouldn't be the ones to say whether the UKA have a life or not. Let the people be the ones to respond to that question.
Okay, fantastic. Now, still talking about the United Kwacha Alliance, UKA in itself, one of their key members, Madam Shalaka Teka, was quoted in the media yesterday in one of the daily tabloids, saying that the United Kwacha Alliance needs the Patriotic Front, the PF. Now, the PF in itself is a divided house. It has got two factions. There's one that is loyal to former President Edgar Lungu, and there's one that is loyal to Honorable Mao Sampa. But my question is, having given that background, do you feel UKA should ride on the Patriotic Front numbers in Parliament?
If I were part of them, it looks very unclear, and you really do not want to be inconvenienced. That everything is possible tomorrow. They will have worked, invested so heavily, and then, get knocked out because something, because of their attachment to the Patriotic Front, which house is still not in order. If we were to advise Madam Kateka, I would really want them to focus on the individual, and so far we have seen that they are working with Dr. Edgar Lungu. I think that is where they should base their friendship. I think it should be on Edgar Lungu and not the Patriotic Front per se, because their supporters that love Edgar Lungu, I think, is what Edgar Lungu can get for the UKA, and not in just sense the Patriotic Front. We should agree that there are a few current members of parliament that do not completely agree with Edgar Lungu, and there are a few that do not completely agree with Mao Sampa. In that regard, I would want to ride on the friend, and in this regard, the friend is Edgar Lungu. I think that is what is important for them, because Edgar Lungu is the one who is going to pronounce and say, my people, or at least my supporters, I am endorsing this person. And I think it's from that word that the support will then go to UKA and not as a political party itself. I wouldn't want to use my energy on wanting to go with a party that, looks disorganized per se today.
Okay. Now, earlier you talked about food security. Now, the price of mealie meal, obviously, in Zambia here, it has continued to rise, and the kwacha against other major convertible currencies such as the United States dollar has continued to be unstable. Let's look at the issue that has got to do with the price of household commodities, particularly our staple food, mealie meal. What are some of the measures do you feel government should put in place to avoid such issues or matters arising from the high price of mealie meal in the near future?
Fertilizer, can we make fertilizer in Zambia?
Yes, yes.
We can make fertilizer in Zambia, and we can also make, when we make it affordable, because we have seen that Zambians have been able to feed themselves. We have been able to feed ourselves, so that is not even the question. However, we have seen that fertilizer has become very, very expensive, and it's very difficult for people who are not even able to sell when they have to fork out so much to buy a bag of fertilizer. It becomes very difficult for them to grow on a larger scale. So I think it was a very good move by the government. We have seen that they are going to lower or at least tax very little on the agriculture machinery. I think that is very, very important. But when it comes to the staple food, I think the number one move is that we should lower the prices of fertilizer, where our farmers can grow as much maize as possible. We have seen that. I was just talking about the food, what is going to come. We might be buying maize or at least a bag of mealie meal at 500 in December, or maybe next year. There's a possibility, because right now, the 300 people are complaining about, it's because we don't have enough maize, right? We sold some maize, but we don't have enough. And that is why we are able, so there's high demand and little supply. That is what happens. We know that supply is pushed by the demand. So what is going to happen that in December, with the effects of drought, there will be much demand and very little supply. What will happen? It will trigger more. So what can the government do? Yes, in the next season, if we can have maybe, subsidize, sell it cheaper locally, I think that would really help. However, they have started an exercise to give out free food. I think that is also very important that they can sell. We have seen the ZNS maize meal that is being sold quite reasonable compared to the other market. So there are some measures that are being done, but we need to do more. It will be worse. Our current hunger situation in Zambia will be worse towards December and next year. So there is need for us to prepare ourselves very well. And from there, God willing, we do have a very good rainfall season from December to next year. I think it's important that we should have a reserve of food for the next 3 years, not having 1 year. Because look at what has happened now. We have sold the maize, and now we're going to be getting GMOs, and GMOs doesn't fit very well with Zambians, right? So that is also creating another trouble. Not too long ago, the vice president was quoted talking in parliament talking about the GMOs, but then it was just casually. Yesterday, we saw it's actually been passed a memo where Zambia is going now to be exporting or importing GMO maize. So we just need to prepare ourselves and look at these indicators very seriously in order to prepare ourselves better next time we have this problem.
Okay. Now, moving on, let me begin to find out from you. We were told, and it was reported widely in the media, that once the debt restructuring deal is struck, there will be stabilization in the Zambian economy. Prices of fuel will drop. Also, when it comes to our staple food, mealie meal, the price will also reduce. However, that is not happening, and obviously government officials, including the minister, has been on record to have said that the debt restructuring deal does not guarantee that everything will become cheap and the economy will be stabilized. Now, having given that background again, let me begin to find out, how do you look at the debt restructuring deal? Remember, it has been done partly, not in totality. But so far, how do you look at this particular debt deal with Zambia and its creditors?
Thank you very much. With a little knowledge, it requires economists, real economists. I'm a health economist, but you know, the little knowledge on this issue is that when the banks, we are dealing with the banks, they need to see some discipline in how you use your money.
Okay.
Or if they are considering, when you want to expand your loan, you want to borrow more money. They won't give you money if they see that you're just doing gambling. They have a record to see how you're using your money, right? So when they have access, what they want to see is that you're disciplined. But then at the same time, when you're in trouble, they would also want you to reduce on your spending on unnecessary things. They want to see that you have, reduced your expenditure. You are only spending money on really important things. So that should happen in Zambia. Yes, the debt restructuring has happened, and yes, I agree with the Minister of Finance. It's not going to, there's no correlation. At some point, it will be a correlation, but immediately, no. What is going to happen is that they have extended the period of repay, and it's in 2 phases, depending on the 2 loans that we have that have been in this deal. Mm-hmm. So one has got a lifespan of so many years, and then the other one has got a shorter. What is important is, what does Zambia do? Mm-hmm. How much do we start making within ourselves in the country? How much revenue do we bring in? How disciplined are we? That is why it is important for Zambia not to entirely depend on the mining. We need to diversify. We need to look at the tourism. We need to look at the skill. We need to look at agriculture. All these sectors. Zambia is very, very lucky country. It's a very blessed country with arable land. There's so many places we can invest heavily and do something out of it, and it will definitely cushion us. Maybe in the future we can even have a reservoir where we can be depositing some money In those mining, we have seen there's some deal that has happened in the mine. Do we have a savings there? Look at Norway. Norway has a fund. From the mining, they have oil in this country. They have a fund where they put the money, and they only use 3% at a given time. Okay. That is the money they have actually, they are saving for the future generation. What are we doing for Zambia? So when we try to understand the debt restructuring, I think it's also very important that we are not just where we are, but what are we doing? Where have we made adjustments? And where are we seeing that we are actually making some money that is going to show that, okay, you've seen how we have been doing now, and maybe be able, because remember, we have not been servicing our loans for some time. So for us to be able to service some loans, we need to make money, right? We are not going to borrow in order to service the loans. We need to create revenue for us to be able to service the loans. And when we default, we are back to square one. So there's need for discipline in the country. There's need for us to start making more money from other avenues than just the mining, where we are so dependent on the mining. We have been making a lot of losses. So I really hope that we are on the right road to making more money. So it's a good thing that we had a debt restructuring, but it's not already a tick. There's a lot of adjusting that requires for Zambia, a lot.
Okay. Now you have mentioned the aspect of fiscal discipline during this debt restructuring period. It has been extended in the long term and in the short term. But let me find out from you. There's another section of society that believes that it will be very hard to grow Zambia's economy, and an admission came from the PS, small and medium enterprises, under the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises, who admitted to say they won't be surprised if SMEs that got loans from the ministry begin to default. Now, my question is, how will it be possible to have fiscal discipline, and also on the other hand to grow the economy while we are undergoing 8 hours of load shedding, which impedes on productivity? Let me get it from you.
Thank you very much. I would like to state that I work for the government, and I work with financing municipalities. So in Norway, we don't deal with provinces, we deal with municipalities, right? And some of the reimbursements we have reimbursement system, but we also have some grants, like the same, the CDF that they are giving to small businesses to support. What works is the system. Zambia needs to go digital.
Okay.
To start with, we need to go digital in everything that we are doing, especially something to do with monies. We need to go digital, and then we cannot have an private individual be working directly with the government. We need to have a middle person, be it civil society, but somebody has to be in between, who is going to be dealing with the individuals and the government.
Okay.
When we do that, it becomes a problem. Never government, right? That is the first part. So how is the repayment system? Look at the banks. When we go to the banks, we are not going to get any loans from the bank if they don't see that you are in a position to pay back the loan. Even if they want clients, they want to see to it that you will be able to pay back the loan, right? And if you cannot pay back the loan, there is collateral. In the event you default, they can easily sell off the property or whatever it is, at least. In this regard, once the government has secured itself, we can see a continuation. Now, coming back to the load shedding, and these are the people that have been empowered with these government funds, that somebody would come in to say, I was load shedding and therefore I was not able to, to make my business. I think it's very important also. We saw it during COVID. I don't know how many of these small businesses are paying taxes. That is also another problem, that in Zambia, there are very few businesses that are paying taxes, and they expect the government to work. What we forget is that government works on taxes. One of the countries that are heavily taxed is this country. We pay very higher taxes. You find that the hospital is free. The roads are good. The schools are free. Why? Because we are paying taxes. So Zambia is not going to survive if we don't pay taxes. What happened during COVID in this country is that even the musicians themselves who had lost out business, everybody was reimbursed. The government had put up a system that all the lost revenue, all the lost income were given at least, I don't know at what percentage, but there was nobody who went home complaining. So the government has seen how long the load shedding is going to be in place. They should have a plan on how they intend to pay back those that have lost out the business. It is a reality. A lot of people, small traders, are losing out due to the load shedding. But what is the government doing about it? And if the government is going to forfeit, it's very unfortunate, because they can be blamed, especially if there's no roadmap on how they intend to do it, how they intend to respond to the load shedding, where we have seen that there's been inconsistency here. I was talking to somebody who said, I am into baking business, and they have said the load shedding starts at 14 hours. So I started baking at 11. Immediately I put in my cakes, the power goes. Where does she go to complain? Right? Where does she go to complain? But imagine that person was also paying taxes. Imagine there was a system where they are registered as well. The government needs to protect itself. We cannot have people who don't understand how taxes work. The only thing is that we do is to make noise. So it has to be both sides. The people are suffering, but we see that the government is bleeding as well. So it is very important that the government, when they see something is coming, they already know about the load shedding. So this is not new for them. They needed to prepare themselves. At the same time, they have given out these, grants or whatever loans they are. They need to be paid back. So are they going after some time and just come and say, okay, Ijantawi, when they did load shedding, so therefore you didn't make your money, or on Daramas Langena, we forfeit? No, come on. Come on. And we say we want to pay loans? We can do better than that, Zambia. There's need. I was even reacting on the food packages. I was reacting, I said, every time, look at the election period, we start registering, I'm a voters. Why do we have to do it fiapara paper? Why? Why aren't we in the system? Norway is going to general elections next year, Mr. Smart. What I will be getting 3 months before election is for us to go and vote to say a vote. It's already in the system. Imagine each one of us had a personal number. Here we have our ID is my birth 6 digits, birthday, and 5 digits, my personal number. Each Norwegian living in this country, you need to have a personal number. Imagine all that was in our records. We would know when Mr. Smarter has birthday, when Mr. Smarter is starting school. Every time all these things are happening, it will be in the system. You have children who are starting grade 1, they already know. The health system, they already have the records. Who are the retirees? They already have the records. Who is eligible to vote? They already have the records. It would save us a lot of money. But you see, this exercise, one would say, no, but you need exercise, you realize majority people, if I'm working, I'm the supervisor, I have 20 friends who are going for registration of those who are going to vote, right? Who would register those as votes. So there's this need for Zambia to have a system in place that is going to protect both the government and the people when it comes to this one. If the president went out now to go and talk in those markets, all he will be getting are frustrated people because they honestly have no idea what to do because they have lost out on the load shedding. And they never think, and it's never ending story. Everybody's complaining. solution for them. There's no solution. So the money, there's a likelihood these funds they got, it will go to where they will forfeit because the government can defend. Especially for those who can say, "Inama cake, nari become a cake, nari for pang, and I'm going to nama cake, bakana effect, nari become a cake." Yari onaika,
okay.
How are they going to do it?
Now you do remember that Zambia defaulted in 2020, right? On one of its euro bond payments. Are we seeing the likelihood of that happening in a few years to come? Are we seeing that?
We are working, and the president seems to have a plan. So I hope, and this is what we're saying, we cannot default. And for that restructuring, it's very, very important. We don't even need to be talking about this debt restructuring. We are too rich. Zambia is way too rich. We've just talked about those people forfeiting or the corruption, all this and that. We just need to have very credible leaders. Credible leaders who are not selfish, who want to see the best for Zambia. Get to be a leader because you want to serve the country. You have the best interest, not just you and me and our people, our friends. No. It doesn't even help out. There's so many places where they need help. If they were so rich, they could be at one point to say, let me go and pay tithe. How do you pay tithe? Chi hospital mulimu, bami pera. Now we school, bami pera. But we don't see these things. They don't correlate. So we cannot default. We can't default. And therefore, I'm happy. I was reading that what's this is asking that all civil servants must be declaring their wealth. This is just something which is straightforward. When the system is there, there won't even be this thieving. Once we have made our system very digital, the type for stealing, I don't see how it's going to work. In one way or another, somebody will be caught. We need to stop working with the documents. I'm a paper. We need to go digital, and I think that way we are going to preserve our wealth, and the wealth will be going into Zambian coffers. In that regard, we are not going to be defaulting on our loans because we'll be having a lot of revenue. There are so many places in the government institutions where there's a lot of loopholes, and all that money, imagine all that money was going in our government coffers. Why would we be defaulting? But if in the how do we pay the loans?
Okay. Now, you and I do know, and obviously our viewers joining us from wherever you are joining us from, do know that corruption in itself is a lucrative business. It is a thriving industry in any economy that is reluctant in applying its laws to the latter. Do you think Zambia has got weaker laws to punish those that dip their long fingers into public coffers?
Zambia needs independent institutions. Zambia needs technocrats to work in institutions. The idea of us having politicians working in places of technocrats, that is creating, it's really hurting Zambia a lot. It's not about being weak, but when we become compromised, when we are not independent, it becomes a problem. Situations like, I'll give an example. If you, Mr. Simata, you are the overall, you are the CEO, and you bring me in, Charlotte, you are the director here, and we have the board who I must report to, but I am good friends with you, and you are my appointing officer. When I do something wrong, do you think it will be easy for me to respond to the board? Absolutely not. And if you, every time you are there involved in what we are doing as an institution, it becomes a bit compromised. So I think it's very important that every government institution has to be free, independent, accountable, and must uphold integrity. Above all, integrity is very, very important. I think it's very important that we must be strict on that one. If we are to work in government institutions, whether it's not about giving a free pass to corruption or this, we must have integrity as a country. And there should be serious punishment for anybody who is corrupt.
Who's going, Charlotte, who's going to push that agenda? Because in many cases, we find that either politicians themselves are embroiled in corruption activities, or those that are close proxies, to these politicians, they're the ones in these corruption scandals. Who's going to push that agenda? Because at the end of the day, the National Assembly houses politicians. Before you become a member of parliament, you are a politician. So who's going to push this agenda?
You see, the people, of course, the people are under the member of parliament. They are chosen by the people, right? And we shouldn't run away from the fact. We are not so bad. Yes, there is an element of corruption in our system. We see that. There is some need for discipline. That is a fact. However, our parliament is not a madhouse. So we still have so much regard for the parliament. And such laws need to be enacted, especially when we see this. You see, I would like to see the next round. We are getting into election in 2026. How it would be so lovely to have debates where you actually you host politicians and ask them these key questions. At some point, politicians must realize, or even any other person corrupt for that matter, must realize that Zambia is never going to be a beautiful country if we continue hiding and being corrupt. So if the people advocate for it, the civil society, of course, there are so many people that are talking about this. And you, of course, the journalists, you actually, it's good. We should applaud you for, raising those questions. I think it's very important that you keep on asking this question again and again. And it's about you and I to take it up for ourselves. How do we want to see our Zambia? We talk about other countries. We go to other countries on holiday. We go to other countries for school, for medical help. I must also say, I'm happy to see how our former football player who was involved in a road accident has been taken care of at UTH, right? You see, those are the places we need to invest more. And if we want Zambia to perform like that, it can't perform with weak institutions, with corruption. We won't work. It won't work. So we still need to talk to our members of parliament, and we still need to have regard. That is why I'm saying the institutions must function. When we have functioning institutions, there will be no question about what we can achieve, because we can see things happening in functioning institution countries. We have seen that. So it's not like it's not possible for Zambia to achieve it. We can achieve it. And yes, the members of parliament themselves must see this thing and pass a law that's going to make it a point to say, once found wanting, this is what you're going to, hasn't it been a law now for Cato theft? It's been passed, right? Why not? And I'm sure the president also found it very nice that law has, because the president has got a lot of cattle. But
maybe one would argue that this would be a law that will somehow be infringing on their rights, sort of, because like I said, most of the people that are found wanting are those that are associates, are those that are related to these politicians that are found, for instance, at National Assembly, for instance, at State House, for instance, at different ministries. These are relatives of these same politicians. Do you believe a politician in his or her nature would then go ahead and pass a law that he or she knows will work against him at the end of the day?
Nishiba Munguru. Nishiba Munguru, if they don't pass it, Nishiba Munguru, because I mean we cannot continue stealing from Zambia. We cannot. And if this law will be passed, I want to believe, Mr. Simata, that there are very good politicians out there. And of course, there are some that are corrupt. So let's capitalize on those that are good and those that mean well for Zambia. I want to still believe that Zambia has got the potential to produce credible leaders, to produce credible institutions that we can, we can be so proud about. So many things will be easy for us. So many things will be easy for us. Not too long ago, we were talking about the Ministry of Lands. They are trying to get digital. Do you know how much heartache has been just to get a document at the Ministry of Lands? There are so many ministries where you have to make a lot of trips just for you to be able to get a document. If we have institutions that are really working on merit, so many things would be made easy. And by the way, there are so many people who are working so hard who would like to make profits. However, they are not able to do that because they are not in line with the powers, right? If we did that, everybody who works hard, you get rewarded by what you put in, I think the corruption will decline. And if we have a government which says, yes, you will be penalized if you do A, B, C, D, and maybe they should also be saying, I just wish they could, some of these cases could come to light, honestly, and to come to an end where we can actually believe that the courts are doing their jobs. And by the way, if we say the politicians might not support this move or this motion, when we have institutions that are independent, that are functional, we want to believe that they will be working based on what is there. Has somebody committed a crime or not? And if they have committed a crime, it doesn't matter whether the minister, Donald Trump, he's been going into court, right? Why can't Zambia do it? It's as simple as that. We are creating so bad for ourselves. I mean, look at us, look at the money, Mr. Sparta, what we are talking about as debt, and look at how much we are worth. It's very sad. We need to do something for the future generation, and the only way to do it is to become disciplined. This excess spending and stealing money which is not yours, it's not the way to go. We know how many people acquire things in a very short period of time. We can't even account for it. Yeah?
As we begin to conclude, you have touched on a very important aspect, the future generation. When people are getting into these offices, constitutional offices, presidency, member of parliament, council chairperson or mayor, you have councillors, do they have the best interests, not of the people that elected them, but of the coming generations, 5, 10, 20 years generations from now? Do they think about that when, from your own observation and how the affairs of this country have been administered upon since the time Zambia got independence to date? The UPND is 2 years, 6 months in government. Do you feel there is need to take into consideration the incoming generations? Have successful governments done that to think about the incoming generations, and including the UPND themselves, because they are here now and they are administering upon the affairs of this nation? Are they also taking into consideration the coming generations 5, 10 years from now? As we begin to wind up, let me hear this from you.
Thank you very much. I want to share that I am running an organization, I'm a founder of Mzinga Life Foundation, and our job is we are advocating for a mindset change. And why mindset change? We are targeting the younger generation and the youths as well. Why do we feel a mindset change? We want to, inject a positive mindset on how best they can be the future leaders, or just, a citizen of the country, right? It is very, very important. And from there, we can see how best they are going to approach this life. Then you ask whether the current leadership is able to, include, are they inclusive? Are they doing that? To a certain degree, yes and no. You see, the politics in Zambia has become very, very expensive. It is very expensive compared to other European countries, just in Africa in general. Our elections are very, very expensive, and that makes it very difficult for the younger generation to actually compete with the big shots, right? Because the fact that it's become expensive, those without bargaining power have very little say if they have to compete for a seat, for example. However, we can do that by passing a law which states a certain percent of members of parliament must be with people below the age of 35. Must be women, for example. If we pass those laws, I think it would help, because then we'll know that each political party will have to filter at least this age group, which is going to respond to the inclusion. Otherwise, all we have to see is that those younger people will have to be trotting and have to be agreeing with the structures so that they can get a nomination. But if we really want to see an inclusion, we need to make it a law. We need to make a policy in parliament that allows a certain percentage must go to people of this kind or people of this kind. I think that way we will be able. And yes, I think government has, in a way, we have seen younger people also being appointed to these government positions. So yes, I think they are working towards it. I wouldn't completely say they're not making strides in that line. I think they have done some great job, which needs to be acknowledged.
Okay. As we go, your last words to the Zambians here in Zambia and your fellow Zambians in diaspora. We do have Edgar Luwinda, Rachel Mbewe watching us from London. So what word do you have for the Zambians based here, like Edgar Luwinda in Chingola, and those like Raphael Mbewe in London? What word do you have for them as your final remarks?
I hope they are positively contributing to the country. I'm glad that they are able to listen to such interesting programs. I think that is progressive. And I hope they are doing their best in their respective areas. I think Zambia needs a lot of young voices out there to see a better Zambia that they would like to see. So keep doing your best. The world is open for you and is waiting for you.
Okay.
And the love must continue. The love that we have seen from Baluvemba and the Lozi. I think we should continue that. It was so lovely, and I'm enjoying seeing those giggles on social media. So yes, let love lead.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us this particular afternoon. We do thank and appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting us.
Okay. Now, there you have it, viewers. That was Charlotte Nace from Oslo, Norway, joining us virtually and discussing matters of national importance. She is a governance and civil rights activist. And of course, thank you so much to Irid Sengere, watching us from Luanshya. Good to know that Luanshya is tuned in this afternoon. Luwinda Edgar's War from Chingola, thank you so much. Samson Nkoma watching us from within Lusaka, Ngombe to be specific. And also, Chisuse Jemwape, Kenson Chitau, Zenga Lives Foundation, of course. And Chimbwe Luenge Maggie, thank you so much. Bonnie Wahil, Ian Shala, Helen Banda, thank you so much for tuning in. And for those that are watching us from home or from your office, silently following, we do appreciate you. You are the major stakeholders in all this program. On behalf of the entire production team, including my director, Mr. Isaac Shpita, thank you so much. I have been your host, and including my guest, Charlotte Ness, I have been your host, Joe Smarter. We'll see you when you see us. Good afternoon, and God bless.